My ego is not so big that I think God got up one morning and said, I'm going to screw with this guy. It doesn't work that way. If you wanted to build big muscles, you go to the gym every day. Your emotional muscles, your intellectual muscles, your spiritual muscles need that same workout. If you're not doing something to make yourself the best version of you, then you're not making yourself the best version to attract the best version of whatever's going to be in your world.
Have you heard the quote, in life we must choose our regrets?
The rear view mirror is small and the windshield is large. All of life is in front of us. You cannot go into the future dragging every regret and every pain with you. Everybody thinks, well, wow, that woman's beautiful. She's my type. And she looks at you and thinks, oh my God, please don't come near me. People come into your world for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, whether it's business, friendship, or romantic. Every relationship is built on 4 C's, the letter C: chemistry, compromise.
What made you go into the author side of the world after sounding very successful in the business side? AJ, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you, man. So I just want to start off with a little bit of an intro to you on, just give us like a 101 who you are from start to finish.
Okay.
And I'll take it from there, I guess.
I'm AJ Tyler. Currently, I'm an author, novelist. I write murder mysteries, thrillers. Prior to that, my first iteration of career was I was a CPA and attorney. I went to work for a public company after I sold my accounting practice, and that led me to buying businesses. I bought 81 in 18 months, which was an interesting study in human nature. Left that business in the early part of 2000, started doing turnarounds, writing business plans, helping businesses raise capital. So I've done a little bit of everything in the business world, and I did that until COVID. During COVID, kind of got tired of doing nothing and sitting around because everything was closed down for a while, and picked up a novel I had started working on a few years earlier. That novel wound up being my first novel. It's called Death Insured. It's been out for a little more than a year and a half maybe. Working on a second and a third in the same series with the same protagonist, and then I'm also working on a book in another series about dating and finding yourself later in life. Again, it's a novel based loosely on my life, but also on the stories of others, and it's told very humorously, sort of tongue-in-cheek. So I have 3 sons. They're all grown, 2 granddaughters, 1 rescue dog. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, so I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles football fan, but also huge baseball fan, basketball fan, hockey fan, and loved that the World Cup was here in Florida because I got to meet people from all over the world who came here to go to the games.
When we spoke before, you were talking about how crazy the Scots are.
Yeah, I got to meet the Scottish Army at a local dive bar here in Fort Lauderdale. It was one of the most unique nights I've ever spent in a bar that I go to a lot, and I'm friendly with the bartenders. And the only gripe was the bartenders said they couldn't understand a word they were saying. So I just said, keep giving them beer. They'll keep giving you money. It's fine. And got to drink and sing and dance with them all night. And some of the friendliest, most fun people to be around and I've traveled a lot, but some of the best fun I've had just with people who just really wanted to enjoy life and took it with them everywhere they went.
Yeah, man. That's what I mean. I don't think they've been in the World Cup for like 28 years or something insane. So they were just buzzing to be there.
Yes. And they made every minute special. They really did know how to live in the moment. They were friendly, they were warm, they were engaging. I met people from Colombia, I met people from Argentina. Everybody, all the teams that came through here, they overtook the towns in the area, and it just made it so much fun. So, yeah.
Did you meet any Brits? Any English? people?
Uh, well, the building I live in, I have a few Brits that live here, and I have a few from when I lived up in Boca Raton area, that a few Brit friends as well, that have lived here for a while, but were born and raised there. One of my neighbors in this building, who I'm very friendly with, who I run into all the time walking my dog. She's lived here for about 15 years. Her brother was visiting 2 weeks ago, and so I actually was out having dinner, and I ran into the two of them, and we went out, and I guess as they say in Britain, we lifted a few pints.
Yeah.
So
Amazing, man. You got
yeah,
a very interesting story. I'm interested to hear more about the. I mean, we'll work, I guess, back to front. So, obviously, you're currently writing the books. You're on two
yes,
published. The next two or three are coming out.
right.
Um, what's what made you go into the author side of the world after being sounding very successful in the business side? And
Um, I have to say, I always wanted to do this. When I was 16, my mother, let her rest in peace, was a very avid reader, and she passed that on to me and to my siblings. Me more than I think my brother and sister. And so I was constantly with her when she'd go to the bookstore, and she'd always say, grab a book, find something you want to read. One day I picked up a book by Dalton Trumbo, the blacklisted writer. I was 16 years old, and I took it home and started reading it. I knew nothing about Trumbo. I knew nothing, and this is way before the internet. I knew nothing about the book, his whole story, which is unique in and of itself, but I fell in love with the power of words and what they could do. And with that, I started becoming a voracious reader. Not just his was a novel about somebody who was wounded in World War One, but I started reading mysteries. I love the idea of unraveling the string to get the knot out, or solving the puzzle. I still to this day do crossword puzzles almost every day. One, to keep my mind sharp. Two, because I love the challenge of trying to. It challenges the mind. Same is true with a great murder mystery, a great thriller, a great police story. How are they going to catch the killer, or is the killer going to get caught? What's the nuances that they create? And so I enjoyed the ability to create something out of nothing. It's a blank piece of paper, and I'd always wanted to do it. As I said, when COVID started, there was nothing else to do. I could get up, I could walk my dog, I could go outside, but other than that, most things were closed. The beaches were closed here in Florida for a while. So what I did was say, every day I'm going to get up and write a chapter or two chapters or three chapters. And what happened was, at the end of the lockdown, I had a completed book. I mean, then the next hard part was the editing and all that went along with it. But I had finished my task thinking, okay, I got something off my bucket list. I liked it so much, and it got such great feedback from the people that read it. I said, I'm going to keep doing this, and had the luxury of being able to. And so what I do every day is get up and create.
did you say that you started a book that you'd already started? Like you continued once you had the time to do it?
Right. I always was doodling, and I have a folder in my home here, and in the folder, clipped together or stapled together, are pages, because everything I started writing by hand. And I would sit with a pad of yellow paper and a pen and just start writing down concepts in my head, or writing a chapter, not knowing where it's going to lead. I'd come up with a name for the book, and each one, and there's six of them in there, is a different book. And what happened was, I would sit there and I would write and write and write, but I never got anywhere because I never had either the time or the discipline to say, I'm going to take this from beginning to end. Once I figured out how the book was going to end, writing it became a lot easier because I could write all the way through.
Hmm.
But I had started this book 5 years before I really picked it up and ran with it. And as I said, I have six more books in that folder. None of them are the ones I'm working on now. Eventually, when I'm done the next two books, then I will go back and pick up one of those and run with it again.
And you mentioned bucket list. Has this been something you've wanted to do for a while?
I've wanted to do this since I wanted to go to school to become a journalist. I've wanted to be, I tell my father, let him rest in peace, was livid when I walked in one day and said, I want to be a sports writer. I want someone to pay me to go to sporting events and write about it. I thought, that's got to be the greatest job in the world. Go into the locker room, talk to the players, analyze the game. My father said, no, you're going to be a CPA. You're going to go to law school. I'm a CPA. Somebody has to take over my business. And your brother's going to be a doctor, so you're going to be a CPA. And so, he had an amazing ability to maneuver and manipulate in a good way, and it was probably the right thing to do. But he used a lot of guilt along the way, and I just went off and running to. I went to college, finished early, went to law school, passed the CPA exam while I was in law school, passed the bar exam when I was done, took over running the firm eventually. My father retired, and did that for a while. What happened was I was approached by a company that was doing a roll up and taking public professional services firms. So I sold my business to them, and they said, and the chairman of the company, who was a billionaire back when $1 billion wasn't a lot of money, said, I don't want you to ever practice accounting again. I want you to go on the road and buy businesses for me. Off I went. In 18 months, I bought 81 companies for them. It was interesting. I watched the stock go up. I watched the stock go down. I lived and died with every movement sometimes. I moved from Philadelphia to Ohio because that's where the corporate headquarters were, and the chairman wanted me there. And, excuse me, and I never, ever lost a desire to write. I read, and read. I just never sat down and said, I'm going to do this.
And do you find this, obviously being in the world you've been in, 81 business in 18 months, you've obviously got like probably a P&L tattooed in your brain and looking at all the variables of a good business versus a bad business. Do you find this new venture of becoming a writer and author, do you think it's a passion project, or does your business brain take over and go, right, how can I monetize? How can I market? How can I excel this thing and create a profitable entity from it?
It, it's funny you ask that because every day I wake up and I sort of have a routine now. I get up, I go to all my social media, look for any messages, any comments, any requests to be on podcasts, whatever it may be, because it's marketing. The if I said this once in the last week, I've said it 100 times to people that have asked what I do, and then they say, "Well, what do you find is the hardest thing? Is it coming up with ideas? Is it getting the?" No, the hardest thing is marketing a book once you've written it, because you have a passion for it. It absolutely started out as a passion project, a bucket list item. And then as I did it, I realized you can make money off of it, but it's a full time job. In many ways, it's more hours than when I was on the road buying businesses because you're constantly thinking about marketing. I was in California for 4 days last week. I went to dinner. I sat next to some folks at the bar. I was by myself. I sat next to some folks at the bar. We started talking. By the time I was done, they had both gone online to Amazon and ordered a copy of the book. Now, it won't anywhere near pay for my dinner, let alone my trip, which was for both personal and charity and business reasons. But the idea that I could do that every time I speak to someone about the book, they want the link and they order the book. So the marketing is by far the hardest part, but it will always be a passion project. I'm learning new things every day. I was out walking my dog. I saw a man wearing a baseball cap from a high school that was a competitor of my son's high school in Cleveland, Ohio, and we started talking. Turns out he's in the book business. By the time we were done, we have a meeting set up for tomorrow to talk about ways he can help me market the book amongst his website and all of his followers. So,
Amazing, man.
you know what? You never know. The universe puts us on a journey. I like to tell people that it's not the destination because that's the end. It's what you do with it along the way. So if you live in the moment, if your eyes and ears are open to new experiences and new things, what you find is that the universe will put things in your path and you just have to pick them up and run with them.
I think I've by no means am I going to write a book anytime soon. But if I was to write a book, I'm obsessed with this idea of curiosity being the catalyst for pretty much anything in your life.
Yep.
And what I mean when I say that is like if you can just open your eyes to things around you and out there and what's going on and question how does that work? How does this work? What's the process there? Could that be something I could do? If you have any level of interest or lean into it rather than thinking, oh, I should just stay on the path I'm on because it's the path that I've been put on. And I guess it can create delusion. It can create probably negative outcomes in some scenarios, but I think you have to have the mindset of you either win from this and it works and you get the outcome that you probably wanted, or you learn that it wasn't the thing that you thought it was and not to do it anymore.
It's funny because I had a mentor when I was still in the business world who said to me, "You are where you are because it's where you're meant to be." And then he followed that up with, "You find yourself here to find yourself here." And I thought they were both very meaningful sayings. 21 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. I had three young sons. I had a very busy career. I was financially successful. I was happy. I loved my life. And then it got turned on its head. I won't say there weren't bumps along the way, but one of the things it forced me to do is the very thing you said. Question, why? Why does this happen? Somebody who's nice, who's kind, who's sweet, and all of a sudden one day the doctor says, "You have 2 months to live. Go get your affairs in order." It's a shock to the system like you would not believe. 9 months after she was gone, I started looking for answers. I started reading all different philosophies and theories, and I found this book of Buddhist philosophy, and the book actually is still with me today, 21 years later, and it's called Who Ordered This Truckload of Dung? And it's a series of Buddhist parables to help deal with life's challenges. The first thing I did after reading this book was I eliminated the word problem from my vocabulary when I discuss things with people, and I still let it slip in every now and then, but I replaced it with the word challenge because problem has a negative connotation in our mind. Challenge is an opportunity to grow, to develop, to expand, or maybe find something totally different than you thought you were ever going to find.
Chaos theory, butterfly effect.
Yep.
I wrote a. Have you heard of Joseph Lott, the 9/11 survivor?
I, the name is familiar, but to be honest with you, I read so much now of people who have been through trauma and through life's challenges because I find the inspiring stories really lift me up and get me thinking, okay, so I had a bad day. So what? This person, sir, I mean, I used to love reading, I haven't read it in a while, but I loved reading Elie Wiesel because he would talk about his experiences and it was so graphic and so real. You could feel yourself in the concentration camps and you go, oh my God, how does a human being get to the point where they're that cruel to people? And how does a human being survive this and the experiences? And then you realize no matter what's put in front of you, you can survive it. You can thrive. You can grow from it.
The hardest thing that's ever happened to you is the hardest thing that's ever happened to you.
Exactly. And you know what? There's no tomorrow is promised to no one. And there's no guarantee that because you're doing great today, you're going to be doing great tomorrow. So you live in the moment. You do your best to appreciate. You get up every day grateful for life. I mean, there are days I get up and I don't, I know I'm going to have a hard time writing and I know I'm not focused, but I'm still grateful for where I am and what I'm experiencing. So that's I guess the moral of the story is, like I said, you find yourself here to find yourself here.
It's the what I was talking about Joseph Lott then. If you've not heard of him, it's really interesting. So this sort of encapsulates like butterfly effect, chaos theory, which again is something else I'm obsessed with. I wrote an email about it the other day, but the story is a very short one, but essentially he was a sales rep for Compaq, the company, and
Right.
he had a long time habit of wearing those art ties with the different graphics on and
Right.
interesting, intricate ties. Um, and he used that as like a little game with his daughters, having them guess whether the necktie showed a Monet or a Van Gogh. And on 9/11, September 11th, he was set to go for a conference on the 104th floor of the North Tower.
Right.
And just before he went up to his meeting, him and his colleagues gathered for breakfast at the Marriott Hotel, which sat between the two towers. And there was a co-worker named Elaine Greenberg, and she had surprised him with one of these ties, a new tie that she'd bought on a recent vacation. She thought, okay, that'd be great for him. Joseph Lott was touched, and he wanted to like express his gratitude, and he wanted to go and put it on there and then. But because it was a blue and red tie, he wanted to be wearing a white shirt at the time that he was wearing it. At the time, he was wearing a green shirt. So he went back to his hotel, got on his white shirt, and boom, that was 9/11. And that tiny, tiny decision to go and change his shirt was never in his, like, never would have assumed anything obviously was going to happen. But
Right.
that literally saved his life. And there's thousands of probably examples of that, like people that miss the flight that it ends up crashing, or miss your train that ends up. But that decision had one intention and a completely different. The intention happened, but a million
Right.
other things were caused because of it. And I think we forget that that's happening 24/7 all the time. Like every single thing we do and make and decide is giving us the intention that we thought, but also probably another million scenarios that we weren't expecting or didn't know were going to happen.
And it's funny because in Death Insured, my novel, one of the themes is there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. Everything you see, everything you experience. You talk about 9/11, and it's funny because my father was an avid golfer when he was alive, and he had gotten on a plane from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was flying to L.A. on the morning of 9/11 to go to Riviera Country Club. He had been invited to play at Riviera for 2 days with a friend who lived in L.A. As they're in the air, heading north, because the plane was going from Lauderdale to Philadelphia and then Philadelphia to L.A., the plane had to go. They told the plane they have to go land, so they land in Charleston, South Carolina. My dad was sitting in first class in the first row, and he said once everything started to change, the stewardess stood in front of the door to the pilot's to the cockpit. 6 months later, my father is getting on a plane now to go to that trip in L.A. that was canceled, and he gets on the plane and he sits down in first class. And the woman says to him, "You look really familiar." And my father said, "Yeah, I was on the plane on 9/11. You were the stewardess standing in front of the door." Everything happens for a reason. You meet people, you experience things. I don't think when people talk about deja vu, I think it's because you've experienced it before. I'm a big advocate and believer in the work of Brian Weiss, a psychiatrist, who talks about past life regression as how you heal old wounds. And I read a lot of what he's written, and I believe there's a lot of truth in a lot of it. I've experienced it myself. So,
Do you think the people that notice things are people living without blinkers on? Because I think a lot of this is happening all the time, right? Like you said, everything happens for a reason, yada, yada, yada. But one of the biggest things I've noticed being in the business I am and speaking to a lot of people potentially in the situation that they don't want to be in life and then trying to change stuff is that they just don't see. They've got blinkers on with their problem. Like you said, problems. The experience that they've got are so vast and huge that they can't see the wood from the trees. They're lost. They're directionless.
that it's funny. I was going to say they have a hard time seeing the forest for the trees. But the funny thing is that I become after my wife passed, I became a lot more spiritual, not religious, but more believing the universe has a plan for us, and especially over the last few years, I have a friend who's a spiritual advisor, and I meet with her every few months, and we talk about life and we talk about goings on. But she even said to me when she first met me that her experience, and she has this aura about her that you feel comfortable that she knows more than just what we're taught. Like she's
Mm.
opened up her mind. And she said to me the first time we met, "You're a light worker. You're one of those people. Your job on this planet is to take people to the light." Now, I'm not so egotistical to think that God put me here with a special purpose beyond, being a good person, raising kids, changing the world in a good way, not a bad way, and try to be the best human being I can be. But it's funny because over the last few years, as we've worked on this together and we've talked a lot, I've noticed a lot more of the tiny little things that connect people and connect the planet and prove to me it's not coincidence, it's real and it's supposed to happen. It's just a matter that people that are in the middle of living, life gets in the way of everything, is what I tell people. When you can step back and look at the bigger picture, what you find out is there's something much grander, much stronger, much bigger than us that's guiding us and taking us. And each of our journeys is unique, but they're also all intertwined.
It's almost like roll with the punches. Good or
Yep.
bad, things are what they are. Your reaction is a separate action. Like your emotional response to something
Right.
is the thing you decide to do. And is there a way that you found, obviously dealing with what you've dealt with and going on the journey you've been on, that you've found to separate the two? Like the event is the event. That is neither, that's perspective at the end of the day. Your perspective of that event is negative because of your experience with that individual or thing. To someone else, that's just another day, right? How do you intertwine, put a stopgap in the middle of this is the event and this is my reaction to it?
Well, the first thing I do is, excuse me, I remind myself getting angry has never solved the problem. Worrying has never, excuse me, challenge. Worrying has never solved the challenge. The one thing that you can control in any situation is exactly what you said, your emotional response. If you react strictly on the moment, knee jerk emotions. It doesn't mean you wait 2 weeks to respond. You could respond in 10 seconds. It's taking 10 seconds, looking at the whole picture and saying, wait a minute, if I, here's the best example I can give. Um, I was on a plane for 5.5 hours last week. I landed in LA. I had a car rented because I had to drive down to south to Newport Beach. When I got to the car rental place, there was a 2 hour wait in line. It didn't make a difference if you checked in or not. Everybody had to wait. So, hot room, lots of people. I just kept winding my way through the cow herder until we got to the front of the line. Now, the woman in front of me was standing at the counter next to me, berating the gentleman because the car she wanted wasn't available and they were going to give her something else. And I thought to myself, what difference does it make? You're getting a car, it's going to be around the same size. You're going to pay the same thing, and all. What do you get out of beating up this poor guy who's been beaten up by 100 people before you? So when I got to the counter, the gentleman said, I give him my name, I go through the thing. He said to me, "Are you here on business or pleasure?" And I said, "A little bit of both." And he said, "Really?" He said, "What's your business?" "Well, I'm doing a podcast." And he said, "Really? What's the podcast on?" I said, "Epic Business Failures." I was going to do it on something else, but I've been here for 2 hours. I'm just going to do it on my rental experience with Thrifty Rental Car. And he looked at me and I said, "I'm joking." And he started laughing, and then we started going back and forth. And I realized that the kindness that I showed him made it easier for him to deal with the next few people because he was stressed and you could see it in his face. So when you come up to those situations that you talk about and you're dealing with other people, don't just listen to their words. Look at their body language. Look at the way they're reacting. Look at the way they're behaving because you might be able to change the entire situation by the way you respond.
Yeah. It's important because you can, like you said, you can notice an actual shift in. Like I do it sometimes. So I'll be, um, I don't know, at a shop or just going about my day, and you say to people, I don't know, like "Have a great day" or just some passing nice comment, and they look at you like a deer in headlights, like they don't know what to do. They're like, oh, what is this? What's he want? Is he trying to sell me something? Is he like, they don't, it's not a normal response. And I don't know the area, like what it's like in the area you're from, but the UK is like, there's north and there's south. And southerners are very known to be like, no one talk to me, hood up, headphones in, go away.
Right.
Up north, we're a little bit more accommodating, and we actually say hello to each other. But even then, it's like they don't know what to do. And sometimes I just have fun with me and my girlfriend. We just walk around and just start being nice to people and just look at the reactions and what they do. It's interesting, isn't it? It's weird.
Um, it's funny because I think that that the world has gotten angry and distrustful. Maybe it's warranted, maybe it's not. I think a little bit of it is social media and it's taken over everyone's life. And so you don't know what to believe because I have friends that will post the most amazing pictures of their weekend and where they are and then I'll call them and on Monday and I'll say, "Hey, how was your weekend?" "Hey, it was okay." Meanwhile, they're dancing, they're drinking, they're part. So was that real? Is what you're telling me real? I walk around. Like I said, I have a dog, a little rescue dog. I walk her 3 or 4 times a day. Everyone I pass, I say hello to. 9 times out of 10, I'll get a hello back. The 10th time, I get a look like I'm gonna commit a crime, and I laugh because kindness should be our default mode, not an effort. Because one act of kindness, the butterfly effect you talked about earlier, one person doing one act of kindness can ripple affect so many people. If you're nice to a clerk who's having a bad morning, maybe the next 5 people they're nice to, and they take it and they're nice to 5 people, and it spreads like wildfire.
So I've been on the receiving end of that when I've been in jobs I didn't want to be in, working
Yep.
in pubs and dealing with drunk people, and you're fed up because it's the end of the night and everyone's drunk and shouting at you over the bar, and then you get
Yep.
one sober person that comes up and just says, "Are you okay?" And then it sort of like resets you, puts you back down to zero, and go, right, I can now take on more.
It's funny you say that because when I was doing business turnarounds, I worked with a lot of restaurants, and I would literally go behind the bar and help the bartenders on nights when they were slammed because they had live music and the crowd was raucous. And and one night, I was there, and we were very busy at a place really gotten into a great position, and they had this great band there, and the band is going. They're 5 deep at the bar waiting for drinks, and I'm running around helping the bartenders. I'm mixing drinks. I'm racking glasses. I'm putting stuff in the dishwasher, and the one of the patrons said to one of my bartenders, um, "That is the hardest working owner I've ever seen in my life. This guy is all over the restaurant." And she said, "That's not the owner. The guy over in the corner leaning against the wall with the glass of wine, that's the owner. He's the consultant who helped fix the restaurant." She said, "I will follow him anywhere he goes now if he needs a bartender because he is willing to do anything to make our lives better and our patrons' lives better." And that's she said, and she said, "I've been in bartending for 20 years. I've never met anybody that's willing to do that." That's not a credit to me. That's a credit to the fact that I appreciate that people want life to be easy. And if you have the ability to make it easier for them, you do it. If it costs you nothing, even if it costs you something, but you get the satisfaction. I don't do good deeds with the expectation of return. I do it because it makes me feel good. If it turns out that somebody wants to do something in return, great. But if I don't expect that, I do it because it's in a way it's selfish, but good selfish.
I was about to say that, and I was trying to pick words that didn't sound like I was calling you selfish, but
It's okay.
no, but I do the same. Like you get the satisfaction from it, and then you question, like, did I do that for me or for them?
Well, exactly. I do it for me, and because I had experience as a lawyer, as an accountant, I would meet people going through challenging situations. My specialty seems to be finding all these women going through really bad divorces, and they all seem to find me, and I hear their horrible life stories with their narcissistic exes, and I help them. And then when we're done, they move on with their lives. Sometimes I stay friendly with them. Sometimes they move out of the area. I have one I just helped that lives in New Jersey, but I met when I was here when she was visiting Florida, and we became good friends. I have no idea what's happened since the divorce settled. I've reached out a couple times, but I know she's got issues with her kids, so she's focusing on that, even though they're grown. She's got issues with her work. But the funny thing is, I got the pleasure of helping someone through the most hellacious part of their life to get to a place where at least the thing causing them the most aggravation got pushed away and done and resolved. And it gave them the chance to start again. I mean, what could be better as a human being than being able to do that? I think one of the reasons I write is because if you're entertained, if I know someone is sitting somewhere smiling, reading the book, that I get a good feeling from that, knowing that someone enjoyed it. And I tell people that I meet, here's my phone number, here's my email. After you read the book, if you like it, if you hate it, I want to hear. I don't get upset when people criticize, because you know what? That's why there's chocolate and vanilla. Not everybody eats, vanilla ice cream. And if you don't like it because there's something in it you don't like, that's great. Tell me. I want to know what it was.
It's great. It's a trait I wish more people had, is the help without expectation.
Yeah, by the way, it's hard at times because even the most secure of us do it and we think, okay, well, that was somebody I really did a lot for. I wonder why it is that they've shut down. But again, you don't know what's going on in someone's world, in someone's head. And part of it is learning to accept that people come into your world for, they say, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Part of it is you, part of it is them. But you know what? I take it as it comes, and the truth of the matter is, because tomorrow's promised to no one, for the people I like and I've helped, I hope they have a great tomorrow and 1,000 more after it, or 1,000,000 more after it. And for the ones who walked away, they walked away for their own reasons, and for the ones that I walked away from because it wasn't additive to the quality of my life, those people know why, because I'm very honest with people and telling them why I'm going to close the door.
Is this also go on?
No, it's hard for people to be honest, mostly with themselves. Forget about with anyone else. It's hard for people to be honest with themselves. So,
what do you mean?
Well, in the sense that when you do something wrong, own it and say, you know what, I wronged you. I didn't mean to wrong you, but I did. Or I did mean to wrong you, but I didn't. People don't want to do that. I think I don't know if it's because of social media and cell phones and everybody wants everything now, or I was raised by a father who said you own the mistakes you make, you wear them proudly because you learn from each one. Most people aren't that way, and that includes people in my generation. I mean, I'm 65 years old, and I can tell you I have lots of friends in their 50s and 60s, and they'll screw up, and rather than saying they're wrong, they'll walk away from people rather than own it, and then a year later they'll call back and say, oh, I don't know why we stopped talking. And I'll go, we stopped talking because you wronged me and I told you and you didn't like what I said. And then I won't speak to them again for another year. And then they'll try again. The
There's
easiest.
a
Yeah. I'm sorry,
it really, even if you frame it as do you know what we just said about doing the right thing, even if it's for a selfish reason? I think there's merit in that with taking ownership as well, because it's much easier to own a mistake, even if someone has wronged you 99%, it takes two to tango. There's a two-way street.
Yep.
And even if 1% of your involvement was your fault, I think trying to justify and own that and go, okay, I did this part wrong, helps you then move past that easier. I've been in situations where I've just pointed finger and gone, it was their fault, it was their fault. I could not see a single scenario where I did something wrong. Right. And I just held on to it. It didn't serve any purpose apart from made me feel shitty until I went, okay, I can't move past this. Where did I go wrong? And you look at it and you go, okay, maybe I did this. And then you go, right, okay.
It is listen, there's always some degree of fault unless you're fighting with yourself. There's two people in the argument or two people in the disagreement. there's some degree of fault to each of them. It may be 99-1, but if you have 1%, say, hey, this is what I'm responsible for, and I am sorry. Not any qualifications, not any buts. I I was married for 19 years before my wife passed, and we were together for 25. We met in college. So I was in my mid 40s when she passed. And I love telling this story that I had a great marriage. I was very fortunate. I've met a lot of people that have had horrible marriages, but we were very happy. And my wife and I had one rule that we lived by: never go to bed angry. And people would say, oh, I live by that rule. I said, yeah, but here's the way it worked. If my wife was angry at me, I would try and resolve it, and she would roll over and go to sleep. She would say, I need my 8 hours, and that was it. And she'd wake up angry. And if I was angry and I wanted to do that, she said, no, we're going to stay up and we're going to keep talking until we resolve this. And it didn't happen much, but it did happen. And I finally realized that the way that you resolve things with people is different with each person. In my wife's case, I would leave in the morning. She would get the kids off to school. I would go to work. And at 11 o'clock in the morning, because she was angry at me, there would be a delivery of a dozen roses to the house. And they would always have the same card. It would say, I accept your apology. And she would pick up the phone and call me all kinds of bad names, and then the fight would be over. And we didn't even remember why we were fighting. And I say to friends that are in relationships or marriages that are wrestling with issues and they're going back and forth, unless it's something you really can't resolve, like bad infidelity, you know what? Come up with a mechanism, and the same is true with friendships, by the way. Come up with a mechanism that works for you to bring resolution, because hate and anger are wasted emotions, and they do damage to the body. They constrict the blood vessels. They cause physical, forget about the emotional damage, physical damage, and the emotional damage stays around for a long time as well. Life is way too short to walk around upset and angry. It's meant to be enjoyed. So look for the pleasure and the happiness and enjoy it.
It's the thing I try and it's like you said, it's sometimes easier said than done and harder
Yep.
to implement in the actual scenario and all that. But when we have disagreements, me and my partner, and it's getting like we're just back and forth and back and forth, and we're not getting any progress. You have to. I try and intervene at some point and go, right, there is a problem here, or a challenge, as you would say. There is a third party to this argument conversation, and we are on opposing sides of the table, looking at it, disagreeing about it.
Right.
I'm willing to come to your side of the table and look at this problem as a third entity, as an issue. Are you willing to accept me to come to to your side of the table? And if she is, great. We can talk about it as a team rather than as enemies in that environment. And that's been like a quick. Not it's not quick by any means. Actually, that's a complete lie. But it's it's a solution that I've found pretty consistent, more consistent than anything, because it's a macro solution. It's not just like say this. Like I remember getting into an argument once, and you're at the pub with your mates afterwards, and you're saying, and one of my mates goes, just tell her she's right, and that fixes everything. And I'm like, and I don't know if that's a solution or just a get out of jail free card or a cop out, you know?
Well, it's funny. I have I have this theory because in the 21 years since she's gone, obviously, I've had relationships. I date, and I am dating, and I date with intention. I've wanted to meet another partner. I just haven't met that person that I know the pieces fit together like a puzzle. But whenever I meet someone on a first date, we'll get to talking about this, and I'll say, I believe, and it's my belief, it doesn't have to be everyone's, but whether it's business, friendship, or romantic, every relationship is built on 4 C's, the letter C: chemistry, compromise, communication, and compassion. Now, I could be wrong, and that's my theory, but compromise is a big part of it. When I have friends that are fighting, well, I don't care that she's upset about this with their girlfriends or their wives. I don't care if she's upset about it. This is what I want. That's great. But what does she want? Maybe the reason I was good at buying businesses is because I listened to what people said they wanted. Even if I couldn't give it to them, I gave them something that looked like what they wanted in
Mm.
a way that our company could accept and they would accept. And you know what? That's how you do 81 deals in 18 months. It's not that I was a genius, it's that I listened to what people said. And I said, okay, this guy wants this much money. Or first question I asked wasn't how much money they wanted. What are you trying to get out of this deal? Do you want to retire? Do you want to monetize your years of work? Do you want to take care of your partners? What's your ultimate goal? And that's the crazy part, that when you hear that, then you go, oh, he wants to do this. Okay, I can give him this and this and this, still within our parameters, but he gets this much if they meet extra goals. So you give me a little, I give you a little. Compromise.
Compromise is something I wanted to extract out of that point and go deeper into, because I I agree that, and I have come to learn that, I don't know your opinion on this. Obviously, you will have a lot more experience in uh, the long term partnership side of stuff, and feel free not to answer this. But do you believe in one person, or do you think there's more out there?
So I'm a believer in the idea of soulmates. I know that the person I met, I mean, tail out of school, I asked my wife out when I met her when we were freshmen in college. We were all part of a friend group. She said, "Thank you, but no thank you. You're not my type." She said it very nice, and she was very shy. And she said, "Thanks, but I'm not really interested." And that was fine. And as time went on, I got to know her more. And the more I got to know her, the more I wanted to go out with her. And the more she'd say, no, no, no. It was a year and a half of me asking every now and then. I needed a date for a wedding. She loved weddings. I said, go as my plus one. That way I get to dance, we get to talk, whatever. And she said, great. She had such a good time. She said, I'll go out with you next week. I was day to day. I was week to week. I was month to month. Even when she passed, I still wasn't sure, But but the funny thing is that someone said to me, well, now that she's gone, you'll never love again. The human heart, so first of all, love is not a thing. The heart is not what contains love. Love is not a construct, it's an energy source. When you find the right partner, it's a force that you cannot believe, and you're living it, so you don't pay attention to it. But when you're not living it, you realize how much it drove your life and drove your successes and your creativity and all of that. So, but having said that, I believe my mother used to say, "There's a lid for every pot." And I believe there's more than one lid for this pot. If there wasn't, what's the purpose of living without that great experience, that great love? Dating is hard. Harder still when you get older, because everybody's got a history and everybody's got drama in their life. They've either been divorced or they've lost a spouse. They've been through bad relationships. Almost every first date I go on, even though you're not supposed to talk about your past, someone is telling me about their bad dates. And I sit there and I smile and I laugh, because you know what? They have to get it out of their system, because they're testing you, but they're also telling you, don't do this to me. Instead of just saying, these are the things I don't want, B, 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 B. No, they got to do it in a story. But I also believe there's another one out there for me, that life is not meant to be spent alone. And you just have to keep searching until you find it and it finds you.
Do you think it works better with intention or without? And this is sort of dipping into the dating app world question, I guess, but I want to kind of try and avoid that if possible. But
Yeah, that's
I've,
okay.
I've been on, like, I've never ever used a dating app in my entire life. Never, just never been interested in that. And I went through a breakup a few years ago. It forced me to, like, it didn't force me, but it was like it was a pivotal point in my life where I took, like, multiple different changes at once. Started the
Right,
business, so moved to Vietnam. I did, like, loads of stuff
right.
in one thing, and then I went out and did that for a period of time and sort of focused on myself. And my intention was to come back to the UK and it still sort of focus on those things, but do it in familiar territory, like in a new city, but with the British culture. And almost immediately, I was in the lift in my new building, and I met the partner that I'm with now. And I believe, and similar to what you said at the start about spirituality and things are meant to be and whatever, that person was put in front of me at that time because I had done the inner work and the stuff away from that to become that person ready for that situation. Um, and there was no intention behind it. I was just catching a lift. I was just getting up to my apartment,
It's it's
and it dropped in my lap.
Yep. You know what? I'm going to tell you, you said the key word there. You did the work on yourself. If you wanted to build big muscles, you go to the gym every day. Your emotional muscles, your intellectual muscles, your spiritual muscles need that same workout. If you're not doing something to make yourself the best version of you, then you're not making yourself the best version to attract the best version of whatever's going to be in your world. And I can tell you, I've dated people that were good people. I've dated people that were bad people. I've dated manipulators. I've dated users. I've dated people that really were just dating because they didn't want to be alone. That until you can be with yourself, you can't be with anyone else. So I do everything with intention. I get up every day. I try and do a little bit of spiritual reading and thinking about it. I try and do a little bit of positivity work. I am grateful. I meditate every day. Why? Because when I meet that person, when that person comes into my world, I'm going to see it, feel it, and know it in every sense. When people ask me, what are you looking for? I don't. I live in South Florida. There's a plastic surgeon every 3 blocks, so you can look like whatever you want to look like, and that's fine. And everybody's got a type, and everybody thinks, well, wow, that woman's beautiful. She's my type, and she looks at you and thinks, oh my God, please don't come near me. But here's the thing. When people say to me, what do you want? I say, I want a connection on an emotional level, a spiritual level, an intellectual level, and that will make the physical chemistry that much deeper. And when you accept that you have to go deeper than the surface, it's not, you know, they call dating a dating pool. The pool could be very shallow. I want to go to the deep end and find the people that I connect with on every level. It doesn't mean I don't want to be physically attracted to them. And of course, your eye is the first thing that sees them. So that's what catches your attention. But I've seen the most beautiful men and women in the world, and they're some of the least developed, most awful people I've ever met in my life because they feel entitled and they don't work on themselves. You have to work on yourself. That's the bottom line.
The best way to find someone else is to be the person that is ready for that. Is that what you're
And
saying?
yeah, and your energy will attract the right type of people. One of the things my spiritual advisor said to me in our last meeting, she says, God, your energy is so different than it was when I met you 2 years ago. She said, you're going to, in the next few months, you're going to meet a woman is going to come into your world, and it's going to change even to a much better degree because your energy is attracting the right things now. And plus, I'm walking away from things that aren't useful to me without being mean, but I walk away because I say to someone, listen, this isn't working because this is what I need to get out of a relationship and I'm not getting it.
Hmm.
And until you work on you, I can't get what I want from you in terms of emotional and intellectual support. So,
And without you knowing that about yourself, you're going to probably accept stuff you wouldn't typically accept if you did. It's like I
yep,
compare it to the business sense of, or more financial, that lottery winners are the most popular people to go bankrupt. Like it's almost like the altitude that you have to acclimatize the climb to get to the top to be able to then accept and enjoy and see the view.
yep.
And if you just get dropped at the top of Kilimanjaro, you'll pass out. You're dead. You're gone. You have to walk up the path, and I compare it to finances, business, and probably relationships. Like you have to go through that period of acclimatization and walking up those steps and that tough path to get to the point where you can then enjoy the view.
There is a reason the universe challenges us. Your soul is meant to be challenged. I believe our souls have been here before. They leave the body when you pass, they go out, they come back, and they experience something different in each lifetime. The one common denominator in every life that I tell people I believe is true. Your attitude determines your altitude. If you're positive and outgoing and energetic, people feed on that and they want to be around you, and you attract people that want to do that. Yeah, there are people who have bad intentions. Your job is to protect your energy. That's your job.
Hmm. And how do you like in application? How do you actually do that? How do you spot a bad intentioned? Sometimes I'd actually argue that it's not necessarily malice. Like they're not intentionally having bad intentions. They're just a bad fit, and that creates a negative outcome even without the malice attached to it. Maybe they've not done the work to benefit you.
See, I look at it different. I say they're self-absorbed. Sometimes they're narcissistic and and malicious, but sometimes they're just so absorbed in their life because they have not evolved. And how do you spot it? You have to pay attention to the details. You look at what people do, you listen to what they say, and you look at what they say and how it aligns with your philosophy in life. I had a guy I was very friendly with, and he was constantly had at odds with his fiance. And I haven't spoken to him in 6 months, and we used to talk every day. He did something when we were out one night. I thought it was disingenuous. I called him out on it. And rather than saying to me, you know what, you're 100% right and I was wrong, he doubled down on what he did. I told this story to 15 different people, men and women. I said, now please understand, this is my side of the story, and there's three sides to every story. And none of them knew him, but all of them know me and know that I try and be as A, detailed as possible, and B, as honest as possible with the facts. Every single person said the same thing to me. You did the right thing, he did the wrong thing, and he owes you an apology. Well, I know from being friends with him for a few years, that's not going to happen. He doesn't believe he does any wrong. He believes that everything he does is right. He had some business issues. I helped him resolve them. And I explained to him why he was partly in the wrong, even though we got a good outcome. And instead of saying, you're right, and I have to change the way I do this, he said, well, they shouldn't have done that to me. It's the not taking ownership. Now we're back to where we were earlier. And so I basically decided I'm cutting this person out of my life because I don't want his negativity to reflect on me. And I don't want any of it to splash out of the pool onto me. I don't need to. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with me. If I can't be happy by myself, I'll go find new people. If I'm happy with myself, new people will find me.
What's interesting is that detachment you've done. A lot of people would see that relationship as potentially a waste of time, like, oh, that didn't come to anything, I ended up cutting them out. But actually, you've gained a perspective that you potentially didn't have before of, okay, I can't be around that type of person. So if I spot symptoms of that attitude earlier in a relationship with someone or
Yep.
business partnership or whatever, you know what to then avoid.
And I say to everyone, everything you experience, everything happens for a reason. You're supposed to learn from each one. I never look at bad things that happen and bad relationships that don't exist as, oh, it's over and it was a waste of my time. I look at it as, oh, what did I learn here? What exactly did I learn? Take a step back, take a deep breath. It's funny because when I talk to people and they have problems, they'll ask me, like, what do you think about that? I say, well, what did you, and first thing I'll say is, what did you learn from that? And they'll go, I don't know. I said, well, let me give you a couple perspectives and then get off the phone and go think about it. Well, did you learn that this person is not trustworthy? Did you learn that when you make plans with them, you have to tell them that you're picking them up at 6, even though you know they won't be ready till 7 and you're going to come at 7? I said, you people don't pay attention. And Einstein once said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome
Sanity.
is the definition of insanity. Right. So learn basically what Einstein was saying was learn from what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
I mean that is the definition of intelligence is having the same data and doing a different, like, reacting differently. So if you did not learn, if you did not develop, you do the same thing. If you see a scenario happen and you see similar, like I said, the similar symptoms, and you react the same, then again, it comes down to taking ownership and going, okay, I saw the symptoms and I let my attraction or my greed, potentially, if it's a good business or whatever,
Right.
get in the way and justify me doing that deal or walking down that path.
Yeah, and two things. Number one, thank you. I appreciate your saying that's intelligence. The other thing I will say to you is that everybody has motivation for what they do. Everybody in life has an agenda. Maybe I hung around with this person. I saw it sooner. When I look back, I realized I missed a few of the signals, but maybe I did it because I was lonely and I was looking for friendship. Maybe I did it because the energy when he was around other people, he was very gregarious and happy, and maybe that made me happy, and I picked up on it. And so everybody thought he's a nice, easygoing guy with a good heart and a good soul. And then I learned maybe that's not true, and that's disappointing. But then the lesson you learn is pay attention. When people show you who they are, believe it. So.
And to bring this back to compromise, what I wanted to say earlier was that I think you, the person you choose to do something with, whether that, like I said, relationship, marriage, business, whatever, is just the amount of things that you're willing to compromise on, or the amount of things if the good outweighs the bad, and you can accept the bad, and they're not fundamentally bad in your opinion, subjective and individual, then that is a path worth walking. Like my business partner, he does all the things that I don't want to do. He's a good laugh. He's younger than me, so he's more switched on with the internet and stuff, and
Right.
he's good at all that. He sleeps too much, and he's shit at replying,
Right.
and that annoys me. But I can accept those two negatives because these good things outweigh it, right? And I'm willing to compromise on those things because I believe in I think he's got good intention, and it's the same with my partner. Like there are things, I'm not going to say them because she'll listen to this and have a go at me. But there are probably things that I could, if I really had to, compromise on and maybe not fully align with. But there's enough to
Right.
go. Actually, this is the person that I think I want to spend my life with.
It's you know what? No one is perfect. Not ourselves, not the people we choose to be with. And the one thing I say to people when they say, "Well, when you're dating, what are you looking for?" I don't have a list of 100 items. I have traits that I look for, but if they don't have all of them, but they have most of them, maybe 80% is good, 90% is good. I don't know how much soccer players make in England, but in baseball, if you hit 300, which means you hit one out of every three times at bat you get a hit, you make $35 million a year. Now, if you hit 300 dating or you hit 300 in business, not so good. But honestly, if I get 80% of what I'm looking for, some level of physical attraction, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, if in friendship it's, well, we have a lot of common interests. We can go to ball games together. We can go out and drink and party and whatever. Whatever it may be, that's pretty darn good if you can get 80 or 90% in life. And so there are things you always have to compromise, always, to get what you want. The question is, what is it you're going to give up? And the one thing that I won't give up is my peace. So if it means I'm not going to have my peace, then I walk away.
And do you think people need to have that one, or can there be multiple? But then we get into the realm of I'm too picky. I'm looking for the perfect. Like, is it one? Is one the magic number? Like, I will not shift on this.
Um, you know, that's a little harder. I have these friends, and all they do is, well, I have a lot of female friends, and I want this in a guy. I want that in a guy. I want this. First, because I live in South Florida, the first one that comes out of every one of them, I'd like a guy with a boat. Okay, well, there's only so many guys with boats. There's more single women than single men where I live, in the part of the country where I live. So, you know what? I guess I could go get a boat and then I'd have lots of women, but then you have to have a boat and you got to deal with owning a boat. At the end of the day, it really just depends on, you know, do I think there's one? Yeah, I do. But I think there's also more than one in the sense that you run across so many people in your lifetime. I don't know how many people in the last 21 years I met that if they had met the version of me that I am today, as opposed to the version they met 15 years ago when I was, I'd been dating for a couple of years, but I was still raising three kids. They weren't out of the house yet. They might say, oh my God, I want to date that guy. But when they met me 15 years ago, they wanted nothing to do with me. Yeah. And the reason why is because we're supposed to evolve as people. And when we do, we keep changing what gets attracted to us and what we attract and what we're attracted to.
Right
and
place,
that
right
and that's
time.
business, friendship, romance. It's always the same.
And I'm assuming you've had a lot of reps with this 81 businesses in 18 months.
Uh, yeah, in 81 business in 18 months, I did. Yeah, and I had I bought 81. I probably met with 700 or 800. I mean, I'd go to cities and I'd have 10 meetings in a day, 2 breakfast meetings, 2 lunch meetings, 2 dinner meetings, and in between meetings, because everybody, once we did the first few deals and it got a lot of prominence in the business world, people wanted to do a deal with us. So it was like they were throwing themselves at us, but we didn't necessarily want them all. We had very strict criteria for doing deals. And I had to make I wasn't allowed to try and fit a square peg into a round hole. I had to make sure it was a peg that would fit in the hole that we had, that what we were looking for. So that meant kissing a lot of frogs to find princes.
And does that involve just having a certain set of non-negotiables that you do not shift on? They are the things that we will not accept, or 3 things you have to have.
It's funny because in my business life during that 18 months, we had a set of criteria. We had an Excel spreadsheet, and I would meet with them and get the information. I would put all the data in. I knew how to manipulate the data to get to the end result. Not when I say manipulate, I don't mean change it, but I knew what data I had to extract, what I had to put in, and no matter what they gave me, I knew how to read their financial statements and then say, okay, that's criteria 1. Criteria 2 is this. Criteria 3 is that. And the funny part is, when I look back now as I'm speaking about this, if I had lived my personal life the same way after my wife passed, I'd probably be married and well into my second relationship but I didn't know what those criteria were back then. So again, it goes back to what are the standards that you want in your life, in your business life, in your personal life, in your romantic life, in your daily interactions with people. I'm a big fan of random acts of kindness. People look at that sometimes and they become very suspicious that you're doing it for some improper reason. But you know what? I just do it because it makes me feel good.
Maybe you should make an Excel sheet for dating.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? I will tell you, like I said, I worked a lot in the restaurant business when I was doing turnarounds, and I laugh because now there are 3 or 4 restaurants I go to all the time. And because I know how hard the bartenders, and I'm by myself and I'm having dinner, so I always bake things because I love to bake and create stuff. And I bring it for my bartender friends. And I was out, I guess maybe about a week and a half or so ago at one of my favorite places here in Fort Lauderdale. And there's 3 girls and a guy behind the bar, and I bake muffins and I bring them muffins. And I'm sitting there enjoying my drink, watching people, because that's how I get characters for books. And one of the bartenders said to me, she said, I never see you here with anyone. She said, is it that your wife doesn't like to go out? I said, no, I'm widowed. She goes, oh, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I said, no, it's okay. No, why would you know? Right? She said, do you date? And I said, why? She said, no, I'm just wondering because you're here. And she said, you're not a bad looking guy. You're very personable. You're unbelievably nice. I mean, everybody at the bar loves you. I said, yeah. She said, and I'm here and I've been here for 10 years, so I know a lot of the regulars. I said, are you telling me you'd like to fix me up? She goes, well, if there's somebody here that's interested, are you interested? I said, Yes and no. She goes, what do you mean? I said, yes, I'm interested because I'm not stupid, but no, if it's meant to be, they're going to come across my path in the right way. Now, if you want to bring someone over and say hello, or have me go over, I will happily do it. But I can't tell you that even if they're the most beautiful woman in the restaurant, I'm interested. And she said, really? I said, yeah. She said, why? I said, because I know what I want. Oliver Wendell Holmes, the great Supreme Court Justice, was once asked to define pornography in a case. And his response was, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. The same is true with friendships and romances. I don't know what it is, but I'll know it when I see it. And I'll feel it in here in my gut.
Has that always been the case?
I think it was always true. Did I always follow my gut? No. Sometimes I followed my eyes. Sometimes my heart got misled by people because, even the most heinous, the best actors in the world are the biggest narcissists in the world because they put on a show for everybody, and as long as you like the show, they love you. I had a business partner who was the model for the murderer in the book, one of the murderers in the book, and he was the nicest guy, and everybody thought he was the greatest guy in the world. And after I got away from his gravitational force and I looked back, I realized what a big narcissist he was, and how horrible he was in reality, and how he would use and manipulate people. But no one thought that because he was always the life of the party. He was always the guy throwing his credit card on the bar to buy everybody drinks. So everybody said, oh, well, he's such a great guy. He's buying me drinks. But there was always an ulterior motive in what he did. Learning
What do you
how
think
to,
that was?
well, first of all, it was always about being loved. He had to be the most loved person in the room. Number two is he had to have somebody around him who he could blame when things went south. So, and number three, he had and I look back and knew his parents and they were very lovely people, but he was treated like a golden child and they never made him take accountability for any of the bad things he did. So as a result, they encouraged it rather than discouraging it.
This is what I was alluding to earlier. Do you think that's a malicious narcissism act from him or actions from him? Or do you think that's just him needing validation and that's how it comes out?
I think most were about validation, but there were some that were, you could just tell by the nature of the action, they were
Mm.
overtly malicious. And unfortunately, everyone gets caught in the web at one point in time or another because when you can only think of your own needs, your own and when I say selfish, I mean it in a bad way, your own selfish needs, that's somewhat malicious, even if you don't intend it to be. Because if you can't see beyond yourself and you can't think about the fact that what you do might hurt someone, I don't care what your intentions are, you're doing it maliciously.
There's potential consequences that you need to consider.
There's consequences to every action we take. That's the one thing I know about life.
There is no perfect decision. It's just opportunity cost. What's the better side to
Yep.
this?
Yep. Absolutely.
Have you heard the quote, in life we must choose our regrets?
I have heard it, and I think I probably have chosen enough for my lifetime and two more lifetimes after. But you know what? Like I said, the other thing I tell people, and I love this saying because I heard it once and I say it at least once a day. The rearview mirror is small and the windshield is large. All of life is in front of us. You cannot go into the future dragging every regret and every pain with you. Learn from them. Don't forget what people have wronged you because you want to make sure never to let it happen again. But you don't sit there and do this, alas, woe is me. I lost a lot of money in the stock market. Alas, woe is me. I didn't get this or I didn't get that. You know what? That was yesterday. You can't change the past.
What about things that were outside your control? So my
Yep.
example of this is, so I lost my mum when I was 17, and
Sorry.
no, it's fine. I want to give relevance to what I'm saying. So it's not that I don't miss her and don't wish to see her, and all the things that you do through a grieving process. But 11 years later, I can, for the first time, say that I wouldn't change it if I could. I wouldn't go back and change that outcome because the last 11 years have been the version of me that has got me to where I am today. I might not be having a kid next month. I might not have met my partner. I might have not.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Done all the things that it's like chaos, the chaos theory butterfly effect that we talk about. Like the path changed for sure,
Yep.
and I'm not certain I'm willing to take that bet on what the alternative would have been.
I don't know that, you know what? The, it's not a road that you get to choose. It's funny. Someone about 8 years, 7 years after my wife passed, or 8 years after my wife passed, I was having drinks with a friend. I was still living up north, and he was somewhat religious, and I am not that I'm not, but not to the degree that he is. And he said to me, "Are you angry at God for what He took from you?" And I remember I was sitting there thinking, interesting question. And then I said, my ego is not so big that I think God got up one morning and said, I'm going to screw with this guy. It doesn't work that way. It's like I said, it's part of your journey. Would I love for her to be here experiencing everything she was supposed to experience with me together? Kids graduating high school, kids graduating college, grandchildren, driver's licenses, weddings. I mean, every event possible that she missed in 21 years. The answer is absolutely yes. Do I think about her anytime I have a family? My youngest son got married last year. I was at the wedding in Indianapolis, which is where he lives, and I thought to myself, she would be so happy that to be here doing this. But she wasn't, and there's nothing I can do to change it, but I could feel her energy around me. And so I think that part of the reason I am the way I am, both the mistakes I made along the way since then and the person that I've become, are directly related to that event. The mistakes I made were because I allowed myself to wallow in self pity and think I was owed something. And we all have that at moments in our life. And the person I became is because I realized this was a person I loved because of the human being that she was, not because of her beauty, which she had plenty of natural beauty. But I want to honor that person by becoming the best version of me for my children, for my grandchildren, and for the next person in my life that she would want me to have. So
It's amazing, man. I think you're doing a great job.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Look, man, you've got a lot of great lessons. Not the conversation I thought we were going to have, but it's the
No.
conversation we've had.
Well, as you said, it's about being frank, and that's okay. I love to share, whether it's about the book, whether it's about life. One of the great joys in life is when you get lessons, share them. Why wouldn't you? So,
There's a reason I can't remember where I heard this or I read it. There's a reason you've got your experiences, and that's not to, yes, it's to learn from them and to implement them and to consider this next time or look out for that, like we've been saying, but it's also so that you can give it to someone else. And like, this is what I learned when this happened. Or if someone is going through something that you've been through, like you've done today, like shared your version of that. And with no intention of you have to do it this way, but just to show this is what happened when that happened to me.
there's a story that was on a TV show that was told on a TV show here in the U.S. and I love carrying this story with me. Um, Guy falls in a hole, and he's in the hole and he's yelling for help. And a doctor walks by and he says, "Hey, doc, can you help me?" And he says, "Yeah." And the doctor writes a prescription and throws it down in the hole. And then a clergyman walks by and he says, "Hey, can you help me?" And the clergyman writes a prayer and he throws it on a piece of paper and throws it down in the hole. And then a friend of his walks by and he screams, "Hey, Frank, can you help me?" And Frank says, "Sure." And he jumps down in the hole. And his friend says to him, "What are you doing? Now we're both in the hole." And he said, "Yeah, but I've been here before and I know the way out." That's what you just said. If we've seen it before, if we've experienced it before, if we've done it before, it's our job to help other people. One positive impact on one person can change the entire world. And you have to believe that because it's the only thing that has been true throughout the history of the world.
It's how anyone knows anything, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Knowledge is handed down. Some people accept it, some don't.
There's a have you heard of the theory of unteachable lessons?
I have not. And now I'm going to have to go do some research when I get off.
Basically, you like it's the whole rich people say money won't make you happy. Then
Well,
the person listening goes, "Yeah, but it would make me happy." And then they go and do it. They spend 20 years building the career, coming wealthy and rich, and then go to the next generation. Yeah, money won't make you happy. And there's just
well,
certain things that you have to learn through doing and being and seeing and experiencing and feeling, and that cannot be taught.
it's funny because I had a period when I was doing all this, trying to grow and evolve, and I wasn't happy, and I was trying to figure out what was going to make me happy. And money buys you things, money gives you options. It's not happiness. Happiness is a choice you make. And people and things don't make you happy, they make you happier. And I remember reading a book by Dan Harris, who's a newscaster here in the United States. And he had gone through some difficult times, drug addiction, work related issues. And he found that meditation and yoga helped him and got him into this great place. He beat his addiction. He became very prominent, famous, made a lot of money. And people would say to him, why does yoga make you happy? And he would say, and they kept asking him, does doing yoga make you happy? Does doing this make you happy? And he said, he came up with a great answer because he said, happiness is a choice that I make every day. And they said, well, then why do you do yoga? Because it makes me 10% happier. And I love that answer because when people say to me, when someone tells you something good about your book, does it make you happy? No, it makes me happier. I'm already happy. Going through life miserable doesn't accomplish anything. Nobody wants to be around miserable people. So
I think people are slightly addicted to it.
yeah. And as you said, money is not the solution. Money gives you options. But I worked for a billionaire back when $1 billion wasn't a lot of money. And probably one of the most unhappy human beings I ever met. He had multiple houses, airplanes, cars, yachts. And you know what? And he dated a beautiful young woman who was half his age plus 5 years because that was the rule, I guess. And I laughed because the only time I ever saw him really smile was when we were doing deals and things were going great, and he would light up a cigarette and smile from ear to ear. You know what? If that was his 10% happier, was getting deals done and building businesses. But you know what? When he died, his children got all kinds of money, and none of them worked very hard because he made it easy for them not to.
Mm. Hey Jay, loved it, man.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I appreciate you letting me ramble on.
No, I appreciate it. I want to get you back on. I could talk to you all day.
Uh,
Where
Well,
do where do people find you?
so if you want to, my website is AJ Tyler, Tyler, not AJ Taylor, because he is also a writer, but he writes erotica. And while he's got 30 books published, so I'd love to be him, but no. So it'd be AJ Tyler author at .com. They can email me at ajtylerauthor at gmail.com. The book is on Amazon. Look it up under AJ Tyler because there are about 9,000 books with the name Death in it. And the title of the book is Death Insured. Wait, I'll just hold it up so everybody can see it. And with the cool cover with the quill pen.
Yeah.
which I take great pleasure that I helped design because I have no artistic ability. I hope everyone will go on and read it and keep an eye open for Debt Discharge, which is my next book. And the one in a different genre, only because I want to leave everybody with a laugh, is a book about a guy trying to find himself later in life through his dating life, his work life, and it's told very humorously, tongue in cheek, and it's called Please Don't Call Me a Nice Guy. I Was Hoping to Date You.
I'll be reading those. I love it.
So, and thank you for having me on. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Love it, man. Thanks so much.
You have a great day, and to everyone watching, enjoy.
Thank you. Bye bye.